Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Wednesday. Morning coffee is here. Greatest dad. This that day of the week where I roll like that. And with us today, Rami has picked up a gig. So we have lost Rami, but we always have Gordo here. So Wednesday crew is down to two people because freaking Rami has to work or make money or something. I don't know what this thing is all about. But yeah, we've lost him on the mornings for now, but he will definitely be making his occasional Egyptian king appearances on our Thursday. We have more like a less Egyptian version in Gordo. Gordo, what's going on, man?
About the least Egyptian person you can get for the morning shows.
As far away as we can get from the Egyptian version, yes.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm struggling, man. It's the weather just decided that it wasn't time for spring yet, so it's.
I like how it's made it look like they're like it's summer. You were like, oh, it's summer. They're like, no, dumbass. You just like slaps it back. It's like I was just fucking with you. And then yeah, it's like cold as hell. And then yesterday, it's like no. I was just kidding. It's back to summer again, and it's just it's. Living in Chicago, yeah, Gordo and we were talking with Mateusz, who's also in Chicago. We have a lot of American Scouser contributors from this area over here. Not because I initially recruited locally or whatever, mind you. It just happened to be that I wasn't going up and down the streets with like, anybody here Liverpool fan? Sir Z is with us. Good morning. Good morning, Sir Z. So some news to get to. I want to get your take on a couple of things that we talked about on the Discord channel and stuff as well. But let's take care of like the more important stuff first. So it is the 19th today. So we have 11 days left on this auction and a lot of items still waiting for bids. So please head on over there. I'll shoot the link right here again in this video on YouTube as well as on Facebook version as well. So please take a look on over there. Make a bid. A lot of good items over there. Like I say, our 7-0 t-shirt is there. There's still like 5-6 of those that I think have no bids. This Milner jersey has definitely been hot. Contributed to us by Megan over there. So a special thanks to Megan. And yeah, a lot of items from Manfield Shop. Abigail, Art by Abigail, which we featured in our Facebook post yesterday. A lot of like good drawings and stuff like that. She's sent from UK. We have actually a bunch of stuff that was sent over from Liverpool artists and stuff like that. You think this stuff is too high, but you don't mind throwing a couple of bucks to the cause overall? Well, there's a way for that too. I'll shoot a link for that. We are only a quarter of the way in for our goal right there, which is we really need a big push in this last 11 days. So head on over there. Please support the cause. Kind of like means a lot. I mean, obviously to me personally, but as a group, because a lot of people have put in a lot of time to this to add something to the good cause. And it's not a lot of money at the end of the day we're going to collect. But, you know, if it helps one kid, I think we'll all feel like we've accomplished something, and that's really all that matters. So you want to find out about people, by the way, Gordo, do a fundraiser. It's like you want to like really weed out your Facebook friends. You're like, yeah, I got 1,000 people, but how many of these people are for real? Do a fundraiser. It'll weed it out in no time. And I'm talking about not only like in terms of donations. I realize we all realize here at American Scouser that not everybody might be able to donate, but sharing is free, and all you do is like do a couple of clicks there. So that's at the minimum we're hoping for. But let's get to some news over here. The biggest one is like what you were talking about on the Discord channel yesterday as well. The whole Chelsea mess. I don't know if you caught the. Did you catch the Champions League games yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, like sporadically, obviously with like almost no interest, but they were on in the background as I was working. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have rather watched the Napoli game, but the one, you know, when football happened to be the Madrid Chelsea game, so I was kind of like watching that. I think the other one was probably going to be a lot more interesting, and I know a lot more eventful. This one almost, even though Chelsea have no one to blame but themselves for not scoring in that first half and making it's more interesting. It almost felt like Real was in control all the time. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that midfield. What I love about that team and really annoys the hell out of me, and we faced it when we played at Anfield, is they can counter without really going all in. So they can make a huge, it looks like a huge counterattack, but it's their front three
Hmm.
and either Modric or Cross, like pulling the strings in midfield. So even if they misplace a ball on that counter attack, it doesn't come back as a counter because the shape and everything is still there for the back four and stuff like that. What do you think of their chances? We're assuming it's going to be City, barring a ridiculous Bayern comeback that I don't personally see coming. But what do you see in that matchup, like City Real?
I think Real's probably the only team that are left that I feel like they can stop them. I think that's like the City fans. If you look at their discords and things like that, the comments that they're doing on their pages, they're very confident that this is the year. It's funny because it's like as soon as Liverpool were knocked out, they're like, "This is our year to do it." There's nobody in our way, and I'm like, I don't think so. Like, the thing about Real is like they have gears, and like there's not many teams. Like, I don't even really think that City have a gear. Like, they always play consistently the same way, which is very, you know, I don't know, it suffocating, I guess you could say, is what City does. But it's suffocating for 90 minutes. And Liverpool were 1,000 miles an hour for 90 minutes, and like it wasn't really those gears. Whereas like I always feel like Real is like second gear, and then the teams get used to that second gear, and then it's like, all right, well, we got third gear, and then it's like, oh, what is this? It's almost like a new game plan. They don't change anybody on the field. They don't change tactics or formations. They just find that other gear, and it's like, all right, this is what we do in second gear, and this is what we do in third gear. And I don't think that teams are ever comfortable playing Real, and I think that's really the big difference. Because, like you said, Chelsea looked a little dangerous in the beginning. Like the crowd started to get behind them, and they started to get some momentum, and then all of a sudden it was boom, boom, boom. But like you said, we saw the same thing when they played us. I mean, we scored 2 quick goals against them, and even with those 2 quick goals, they never sweat. They never got nervous. They never did anything. They just switched gears and hit us back and had the game tied before halftime.
Cersei makes a good, point there. I mean, it is Ancelotti's is it? You think it is from the manager that calm is coming, or is it having a guy, having so much goddamn experience on the pitch and in the biggest scene, not just like an old dude with experience, but experience winning at the top level. Whether it's Benzema winning the World, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you have Modric cross in the middle, you have like that back line, Carvalho and stuff like that. I mean, all these guys have so much experience. Do you think it's the players on the pitch with that calmness, or is it like kind of like Cersei is saying part of it, or the big part of it is coming from the sideline?
It has to be both. It has to come from the confidence that he instills in the players to reach their achievements. Because I mean, you look at certain players under certain managers, and they go to crap. I mean, look at Graham Potter at Chelsea. Like when he came in, like some of those players are phenomenal, and like under him, they just couldn't find that level that they needed to, or that they had achieved previously. It's the same player, it's the same team around them. The manager's different, but the manager needs those players. So I think that it's definitely both, which is like not an answer at all. It kind of just like a fully avoids the question. It's like the most political thing I could say is yes, it's both of them. But no,
all of the above. Oh, none of the above.
Like in that first game in Spain, like a ball comes in from like, I don't know, 30 feet in the air, loop to him, and he hits it before it touches the ground, and then plays keepy-uppy with it, and then passes it away. Like, that's your manager, who's like, I don't know, 75 years old, that could do that. It's like, yeah, I'll play really well for him too. So he's.
See, one wonders though, is a part of it's the owner going into the locker room constantly making speeches. I mean, here's the thing. That's like the biggest story that I want to actually like talk about today is the mess that is Chelsea. Because first of all, it includes Lampard's misery, which I'm all up for. And so the news story came out that after the last game, before I guess this league game, boy kind of like chewed ass, if you would say over here in the US, went to the locker room and called it disappointing, and kind of like had a go at the players. It sounds like more than a morale speech, like we still believe in you and stuff like that. First off, and we've had this conversation in the past about like on a Monday podcast, I think it was like what kind of a manager we want, what kind of an owner we want. But what kind of an owner do you want? Do you want an owner that's really hands-on? Like going into the locker room and saying this and high-fiving always around? Or do you want like an owner that's going to kind of like be behind the scenes, just like a huge leader figure on top, but not his hands in the cookie jar all the time.
I feel like if the owner knows what they're talking about,
disconnected for a second.
And if the owner knows the sport, no, we should be good. Can you still hear? Can you still hear me?
Technical difficulties. You're freezing occasionally, but I think we're good now. Go ahead. No, we're still not good.
If the manager knows what they're talking about. Uh-oh. Hang on, let me hop off and come back in.
Yeah, John, I'll throw my spiel. You'll be missing out on this thing. I mean, that's what it like feels like, doesn't it, Matush? Like he was in there saying, like, what is this bullshit? I'm not paying billions for this mess, kind of the deal. And I don't know, as an owner, I guess, do you have that right to be involved in some ways? This is why I would, even though I would love to own a club, I feel like I would not be a great owner because I would be too emotionally vested in the ordeal and would probably intervene a lot more than I would like to. So that's why, hey, Gordo's back in action. That's why I don't think like I would be a good owner, I was saying, because I would be too emotionally vested. And when I see like a bad game, I'll be like, what the fuck is going on? Or, I will be involved. And I don't know, for me, I want everybody doing their job. And so if I appointed a manager, I mean, obviously Lampard is, doesn't know his job, but I mean, how many managers can you appoint? If you appoint somebody and say, hey, this is the manager I'm going with, I think you just let that guy do his job without, poking your nose all the time. Because to me, if I'm a manager, I don't want you around, because so that I can do my thing.
Yeah, that's 100% of what I was gonna say is you bring the guy in who does the job. So why do you need to do the job? Why even have the manager if you're going to be in there all the time and talking to these players? The other thing is, like, if you wanted, or if you knew what you were talking about, like maybe you'd played the game and you were intimate with it, or you have been or owning teams forever and you kind of had something powerful to say, I think that, every once in a while going in there and congratulating, like, good job, or thank you for this, or maybe if it wasn't going right, going in there and reassuring them, like, we're in this together, we're going to get through it, like, I'm 100% behind you guys. And that's the right thing to do. If your owner is the clown that we have seen in the media of Todd Bowley, like, I don't want him anywhere near the lot. I mean, the guy owned Chelsea for a week and was like, we need an all-star game. Yeehaw. It's just like, what the this guy knows nothing about this sport. Like, get him out of the fucking locker room. You're just causing more problems. And I think it's literally a top-down effect that you see at Chelsea. I mean, this team was champions of Europe, champions of the world, less than 12 months ago, and now look at them. They literally just played off the pitch in every game that we've seen this year. It's just, of course, we couldn't score against them, but
well, I mean, to be fair, they play with like 8 players who were either like defensive midfielders or defenders. So that game was doomed to be like that. Surzi says if the players are willing to take the owner's money, they should be willing to take his BS too. Lampard has a 100% record in 2023. He's lost every game. Which is a joy. And I think, see, I don't agree with what Surzi is saying here. Like, he's put 600 million to that club, which, okay, great. He has every right to do what he wants with the club. And yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not debating that as an owner, you have every right because you are the owner. You can do whatever the hell you want. It's your club. But is it better for the club is, I guess, like the bigger question. And I think maybe you go to a locker room. I want only my owners to go to the locker room after a loss or something to just say, hey, that was a tough one, but we believe in you guys, rah, rah, rah. Back to you, coach. And then, just get out of there. I mean, that's what I kind of like want the owner to do. After a win, they can go over there and high five and say, what a game, blah, blah, blah. That's all I want from my owner. I don't want him coming over there and say, I'm paying your guys' wages, play better, and then just leave. I don't know. These players get this kind of money if they didn't get it from Chelsea, they were gonna get it from like a shaken like freaking City or PSG or whatever. Anyway, it's not like, oh man, we need this guy to pay for the bills, bring bread home kind of a deal. They're gonna get this money either freaking way. So it's an environment at the same time that you're gonna work in that's gonna make the deciding factor. And while you're the money that he pays them maybe gives them the right, I just cannot see it being useful. And Gordo, is it part of the deal is the fact that, and I hate to say this because we fight this with our name over here all the time as American Scouts, or they're like, you guys are American, you guys don't know anything. Mind you, I'm furthest away probably. I might be Americanized now, but I'm Turkish as fuck. But I mean, here's the thing. Is that a factor, you think? The fact that this guy is talking about, like an all-star game, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't really know the game, and then comes into the locker room and says, this is really disappointing. You're like, dude, you don't know what a throw-in is.
Yeah, 100%. Like, could you tell us offsides? Now, mind you, like from year to year, I have trouble telling you what offsides is anymore. So that might not be the best marker for somebody's
next question, pass.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I definitely, like you said, like he's throwing all this money. He definitely has a right to, but you don't want him to. Like, it's just, he should be a silent partner. Like, I am giving the money to allow the club to function. And I like I said, if you hire a guy to do the job and you don't trust him to do the job, then why did you hire him? Like, if you have to go in there and make the speeches, then you should be the manager too. It's like that scene in Office Space where Ron Livingston's character sits down with the Bobs and he's like, I get yelled at by 3 different people. It's just like, these guys are professional athletes. They've been playing their whole lives. They know they're not doing well. They get probably yelled at by Lampard, and then the owner comes in and yells at them. It's just like, it doesn't help the morale of the team.
And that's maybe because he never got the guy that he really wanted. Because they're making it sound like Kepa is like, well, this happens all the time. Like, he's always in here, so this is normal. Either they're downplaying it, or like Sir Z says, they want to make sure the check is in the mail every Friday, so, or like whenever they get paid. So he's like, no, this happens all the time. It's cool, man. He's the owner kind of a thing. And obviously Lampard is going to say that because, he defends because, maybe he'll be there next year. And yeah, so he says he can't fire any more managers. Maybe he realizes the common denominator in the Chelsea backline of players. I think the common denominator is probably the fact that they almost overspent and put managers in a situation where it's impossible to handle. And I think they brought in managers that are probably not ready for that. And I think if you bring, for example, a guy like Potter, a guy like Lampard, who's going to be like, what do you want to the owner? Okay, like, I'll work within your parameters, right? I'll make sure we're not going to fit the locker room. That's cool. I'll walk to the other locker room, talk to the other 5 guys over there separately. Whereas if you bring a guy like, we were talking about it earlier, like Sir Z was mentioned, like Ancelotti, for example, or let's say Mourinho, right? So like everybody hates a good Jose story. So let's go with him, for example. If a guy like that comes in, I think they're like, okay, this is bullshit. We're not even feeling a freaking locker room, so we're gonna have to send 6 guys right off the bat. This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And yeah, what are you doing in this locker room? Get the hell out of here. This is my zone. I feel like he's brought in guys maybe he doesn't trust, but he can actually do this stuff. Whereas, like the names I mentioned, I don't think they let this happen.
No, and there's a little conspiracy theory with me that I think that Roman Abramovich still owns this club, and I think well, like what has changed? Because that is you've nailed it on the head. And my personal opinion is they wasted all these guys, all these fantastic managers that have been successful everywhere else. Even Jose Mourinho, successful twice at Chelsea, got rid of him because he was trying to control the team. He felt that he didn't need the management input. He needed the money and for them to shut up, and he can do what he wants to do because he's earned it. And they fired the guy, and they spent almost as much on buying out manager contracts as they had on players over the last couple of years. And they finally weeded it out. They give Graham Potter this job. And I'm sure the way that they approached him was very much like, you owe us. This is probably above what you can do right now. So, be the yes man. And then Graham Potter's like, whoa, something's not working here. And he probably, wasn't getting the results. And now they've got Frank Lampard, who's just like dying to destroy another team, and he'll do anything to manage the
To
owner.
add to his resume of destroyed team.
Right. It's like if you're going to micromanage everything and then fire everyone that tries to make it better, and then you're left with just the yes man, then of course it's going to get worse, because I feel like it's just been that downgrade, and that's what makes me think that Roman Abramovich still owns this club.
I like that conspiracy theory, though. I do like that. Chris says, "Good morning, Les. Got poor connection." Yeah, it's going. I think we're back in full effect now, which, in all clarity, high definition. Which I don't know if that does you guys any good, but it is there. That's for sure. So, but okay. So here is the flip side of that. I mean, I guess when you're Lampard, like you're saying, you're just adding to your portfolio of miserable seasons. You throw this in there, you're like, oh, I was in Chelsea. I fucked up Chelsea twice, beat that kind of a deal. But as a manager, do you even want that? I mean, I have been in situations where, you're in charge of like 200 people, but there's still a boss above you, because I wasn't that rich to own the joint. So, but you don't want them there long. I don't care how, even they're supportive and they're like, they're behind you saying like, Tim is the greatest constantly. I don't want you there, because this is my zone. This is my domain. And I feel like it sends a bad message, automatically takes the authority away from you when you have that guy behind you, even if he is being supportive. Just, I don't want him in the picture. I just want me in the picture. You listen to me. Don't look at the guy behind me, kind of a deal. So what do you think of that? I mean, like, I guess compare it to FSG, because I know there's a lot of talk. I mean, Saido was just mentioning, FSG's policies and stuff like that. I mean, to me, I think I would rather have this, bring a manager like Klopp, let's face it, that's what City does as well. They spend a lot of money, but they brought Pep and they were like, hey, who's the best at doing this? You seem to be the best at doing this. Why don't you come in and do this? You take care of everything soccer. I'll write the checks, because that's what I do best and that's what you do best. But when you compare the FSG, who maybe doesn't write the checks as much as we would like it to, but still bring a guy to run the show and obviously support him, or at least on the same page, because Klopp says he knows what he was going into, and they're on the same page with FSG. They might not agree all the time, but they have an understanding. Like, which do you prefer?
Well, I'm in the same situation I have been in for the last 5.5 years, is that middle manager type thing, where I've got a team in the field, and like I spend most of the time in the field as well, and I've got a supervisor, and like luckily my supervisor, we have a conversation, and then I disseminate that information to my crew. Like, I'm the boots on the ground. But I've been in a situation, in the past 10 years where I've had that manager that comes in and will micromanage over me. And I know that he's got 5 or 6 other projects going on at the same time. So he doesn't even know really what I do and what my team does. And yet he's the one talking to them. And it's just like you said, it totally just waters down your authority, and nobody knows who to go to anymore. So I prefer the FSG approach. And though I think the one thing that often gets overlooked when we talk about them dropping the checks for us is we almost went bankrupt. We were very close to filing for bankruptcy under Hicks and Gillette, and they saved us. They loaned us their own money on top of buying the club. And part of the reason that they don't spend an awful lot of money is because the club still owes them money. And so I think that often, gets overlooked when we discuss that. And I think that, that's probably the situation the Klopp came into, is they sat him down like, okay, here's our financial plan. This is what we think is going to work. And for the most part, it has worked. So I appreciate that. And definitely, like, you hire the right people to do the job so that you don't have to do the job. Like, you are just writing the checks. And if you find the right person like City and Liverpool have, then you're okay. And sometimes it gets bumpy and you've got to figure that out together, but it shouldn't be like, would you want John Henry to go into our locker room and talk to the players? Like, I don't think anything comes across. Like, I just want him in the stands and wave, and like when stuff's going bad, I still want him to be there, and that just shows like, hey, I'm not avoiding this situation.
Yeah,
like, I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I want him to be nowhere around, but I don't want him intervening. And I think, Serzi says, I think he would do that if Enrique was in charge. Lampard and Potter were there to be bullied, and that's what I mean. Like, they brought guys, first of all, into unwinnable situations. I mean, this is probably, if you said, I mean, I think Potter is a good coach. You've seen what he's done with Brighton, but everybody has their strengths. You needed to bring somebody over here who can manage these egos, who can manage guys who were coming in with the 80 million tag, with the 50 million tag and stuff like that. Whereas that wasn't Potter's resume. I mean, that's not how he became a good manager. He was more about Potter would probably be a better manager for us in terms of making better players out of like smaller players, as opposed to getting big signings and going to like a Barcelona or like freaking like Chelsea and stuff like that. And I think they've set them up to fail for one, and then to come in afterwards and kind of mess with the authority is obnoxious. Like I say, Lampard is saying all the good stuff to keep the job probably for next year. But do you think they will bring somebody in? And would they bring somebody in, like Cersei says, would they rather, knowing the kind of owner he is, bring somebody that he thinks he can bully a little bit as well? Or will he learn his lesson and say, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Why don't I just get somebody who knows this? Because these guys are successful business people. Like, they know to put the right guy in the right situation and be hands off. This is what drives me nuts when you own a club and you just totally lose them. But then again, like I say, I will be too emotionally vested myself and probably would be a bad owner, because I would probably end up doing the same.
Well, I think that the passionate part of it helps, because then you have the ability to kind of understand that, all right, it's not going well, I've got to do something else. Whereas, like, I get, if you don't care a lot, then you still, and your management style is that bully tactic, then you're just going to pick people that you can bully. I mean, I don't think he even knows. As long as Chelsea's still selling jerseys and tickets and things like that, he might not even notice like the loss. Oh, it's frustrating. Oh, it's frustrating. Like, and coming in and not knowing how difficult it is for the fans, and how Chelsea should not be in this position. If he doesn't really know that or feel that, then he's not going to change his tactic, especially if he doesn't notice any changes to his pocketbook. So it's hard to say. I think that some people like that, like, they get to the top because they're such a bully, and people just like, I don't really want to get in it with him, because this guy like just talks your head off, and even if he's not right, he'll just keep talking to you. And sometimes people like that just rise to the top because they're bullies, and he's not going to change. And he thinks that those tactics have worked for him this far. Why change? So it's hard to say. It'd be, as a Chelsea fan, you definitely want him to kind of be somebody to sit him down and shake him and tell him this isn't the right way to go, and him changing his mind. But I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I think some people with the egos like that, especially the fact that now we know for a fact that he's in the locker room all the time, just hanging out as one of the guys, like he probably is not going to change.
I see him in the corner like he's trying boots on himself. Yeah, he was like, these are uncomfortable to walk in,
I played some soccer when I was 6. I was pretty good. Yeah, I go, okay.
I used to be the kid up top scoring all the goals.
Yeah. There was, and telling the story, there was this kid, Johnny Simpson, and it was one of the best. And I put the ball through his legs one time, and like,
I pushed him right back to the ground. I was a bully then too. But there says, I'm sure he'll start feeling it without them in the CL. Yeah, and I think maybe that's when he'll be like, oh man, this is not how I thought. And then he says, I can't even properly form a sentence through text, just like I can't form them on Monday morning. But Tush is definitely not a morning person, and especially this Monday, he had no coffee, barely water. So yeah, I hope the blood test and everything turned out good after all that morning show. But so let's get to this story. Obviously, there are Champions League games again today. Sadio Mane gets hit with a 350,000 fine, which inflation is a bitch, because this is like a club record for Bayern, and last time was 2012. To be fair, that's over like a decade ago, and it was 50,000 for that Robin and Ribery incidents. What do you make of that? Mane hitting Sane sounds like a made-up story, but it's true, because Sane had the busted lip to prove it. But what do you make of that ordeal?
What an asshole you have to be to get punched by Sadio Mane. I think this says way more about Sane than it does about Mane. I mean, what? He's like the nicest.
Mane throwing his cracked phone at him. They're like, here we go.
It's just like, I don't know. It has to be super frustrating for Sadio Mane. I mean, being at the heights of where he was at Liverpool and a crowd favorite, and his season just really hasn't gotten off for him. And I know the Bayern fans are kind of getting on his back a little bit, thinking that he's been a flop so far. So it's definitely got to be a difficult situation for him. And I want to know if it had anything to do with like the fact that Sane used to be a City player, and I really want to know like the context of the fight, because I think that would say a lot too of what actually happened. And we didn't know that. We just knew that they got into an argument, and Mane punched Sane. But I mean, I really feel like you have to really push that guy's buttons to get a punch. I can imagine that having a positive effect in the locker room, even, because whoa, Sadio Mane just punched somebody. Like, oh my, hang on a second, maybe we need to take a breath and look at what's going on here.
I mean,
So,
my speculation was watching that game. Sergi says Sane had something about Mane being too dark. Allegedly, Sergi said. Really, I did not hear this. My speculation was watching that game. Sane wanted to hurt City so bad at a personal level that he was taking shots when probably shots were not designed to be taken or was not the best option. Just watching that game like as a semi-neutral, I guess. I probably wanted Miami to win more than City, obviously, but like there's a shot. He's like, dude, like we had numbers. Why would you do that? It's not like basketball. We're like, oh, we'll get the rebound though. Like, why don't you just crank a shot there? We had numbers, and we could put him like play it wide or whatever. But that was my theory at the time. I did not hear about this side story because I would like to know what the whole ordeal was. I didn't even think of that whole City Liverpool thing. Did Mane say like, what do you know about Champions League or some shit like that? And they got into it, God knows. But what do you think about his future? I mean, I feel like, first of all, when you get fined like that, I don't think you want to stick around for Mane's perspective. And really, it hasn't worked out anyway. It's not like, oh, it was going great, I wish this never happens kind of a deal from Bayern's perspective. So where do you see Mane next year?
Well, I think it's a unique situation on both spectrums because, one, you have a club that literally can afford to let him go and buy somebody else to replace him immediately. So, like, they don't have the, you know what, we made an investment, we kind of got to stick this one out. They would have no problems cutting his contract if they felt that was the way they wanted to go. So that's an interesting scenario. The other side, though, is there's a new manager potentially coming in. And so sometimes, even if you haven't been playing well, it's like a second. You almost join a new club when a new coach comes in, because it's almost like everyone's kind of got to earn their spots again. And so it could be a chance to hit the refresh button for Mane and get his career at Bayern under his feet again. But I mean, I think we'll just have to see how this one plays out. For me personally, I think if the locker room has changed that much where he's that frustrated, it's probably not a place that he wants to be. He's obviously really frustrated. Like I said, I mean, as funny as it is, he is one of the nicest people in football. So to have him lash out at somebody like that, he's probably extremely frustrated. So I hope the best for him. I would love to see him kick off his career wherever he wants it to be. But for him personally, I think he's probably ready to go.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure he is frustrated as hell because you go to Bayern, you probably have a lot more, and this was in his mind. It's not like it worked out. Like it's almost like this was in his plan along the way when he told Liverpool he's going to leave and stuff like that. And so he kind of wanted this. He probably thought, oh, we'll probably wrap up the league with 10 weeks to go, focus on Champions League and stuff like that. And now in the league, I mean, if Dortmund didn't blow it last week, they would have been like back on top again. And it's kind of like rocky. By now, usually they're guaranteed or they have like a 6-8 point lead or something like that. And now they're probably, that's the next question as we wrap up over here, is they're probably out of the Champions League. Do you see a miracle comeback coming from Bayern in Germany? And I mean, I don't see it at all, but Benfica going to Italy. And we're going to see like an all Milan semi-final, which sounds
which is, I think,
my mouth just saying it.
Look, the way that things were picked, it looked like that's exactly what they wanted to happen. There was going to be a Milan team in the final. I don't see Benfica coming back in their game, and I think Bayern gives a better game, a better showing. But I think you're right in the sense that this is a team that's usually not focused on the league still at this stage in life. And, I think for Bayern and Bayern fans, I really think that coming in second in the Bundesliga is probably not what they want to do. So I think there's probably more focus on the Bundesliga, or at least more frustration and anxiety towards that than there is. And being 3-0 down, a lot of them probably already given up on Champions League. So I think we'll see a better showing. But English teams are Bayern's like kryptonite. So I know for as good as that team is, we usually never have a problem with them.
Yeah, that is odd, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we matched up with them, that looked like initially it was like, oh shit, Bayern, they're a good team, but the matchup did not seem. But then again, those were the days where no matchup seemed like a challenge. But I mean, honestly, the first game, I thought Bayern played pretty well until Upamecano just decided, I'm going to blow the shit up. And I thought he was just going to like self-implode middle of the game after one point. He just gave the game away multiple times, it seems like. Otherwise, they had the upper hand and the goal came almost against the run of play. But yeah, the 3-0 could be really tough to overcome. But the Polish Prince calls it as Bayern will come back and win on penalties. Okay, clipping this right here, 36 minutes in, so that I can play it again next Monday. But hey, if he's right, I got to destroy that clip as fast as possible from the hard drive and everywhere. And then, Inter, I really wanted Napoli to win. If nothing else, it's the team that can possibly win, had a chance of winning the whole thing, and was the most likable out of all those teams left behind, out of like City and Real and Chelsea and stuff like that. And not to mention, I don't want to see Milan teams go against each other. But, despite dominating, they go out. Do you think that's kind of like an ordeal where the league is wrapped up so the intensity is not there? We were talking about this with Mateusz regarding Arsenal, for example, on Monday, where you have games one after another. So you got that intensity almost flowing from game to game to game to game. Don't even realize you're tired or you're slowing down. Whereas Napoli, let's face it, they won the league like freaking, they pulled a Bayern in Serie A. So, and then suddenly they play a big game and the intensity changes suddenly.
Yeah, I think you just hit those hiccups inside the game, and you have that inflated invincibility like ego, and then you kind of run into a rough patch and like, all right, this shouldn't be happening, what's going on? And it is that, and that's why like in the invincible season is so incredible, because you get to that point and you don't feel like you can lose, and you kind of lose the edge of we got to be careful here because any team can hit us. We aren't invincible. We're just in a really good run. We got to continue to do that. And you get blasé about the whole thing. And I think that's probably where they went wrong. They wrapped it up so early that it's like, all right, now, the rest of it's ours. We can just start bagging trophies now. Whereas like last year for Liverpool, you couldn't get closer to a quadruple because they literally were fighting every single game. And there wasn't a chance, there wasn't an opportunity at all that season to kind of slow down, and that momentum led him as close as you could possibly be. Whereas like, that's why it's so difficult, because I don't think that anyone can get as close to the quadruple as Liverpool did, because most of the time you're wrapping up the league early and you kind of lose that momentum. And it's definitely a difficult game to play. It could go both ways, I think, at answer. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm being so political today and not actually.
See, all of the above.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. It can be good and bad. I feel like I always say that.
Well, the boys who should be back tomorrow night, followed by the Polish Prince over here in Galley, the fantasy nerds. Friday morning, hoping to have, if everything lines up, Ettore Rossetti, actually from Save the Children, with us Friday mornings, morning coffee. Have a cup of coffee with him, talk about our fundraiser and what Save the Children does and why there's such a big need and all that good stuff. And we'll get a lot of information. He has like a really interesting fundraising story of himself, because I was stalking him on the internet. So I got to find out more about that story when he comes on Friday. So I'll be back Friday. And guess what? No Layla games this week. So I am preparing a list of trivia questions to take with me to the Monday night podcast. But have a great hump day, everybody. It is Wednesday. The boys will be back tomorrow night. Enjoy the games today. Take care.